恭敬大德三听，为四法为记一切众生，经传妙法论，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐。速战无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss, and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suceto ye alahati sanmiao sanputo che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it, and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, excuse me, and all good knowing advisors, Amitofo, and welcome back. This is lecture number 120. Yes, 120. We've been doing this. This is 120th time we are doing this. Okay, so Ron already has a question. Okay, everyone, if you look at your chat box, you will see Ron's question. Feel free to help Ron out if you have some ideas, and we'll come back to the questions later. Okay, so today we are on mindfulness of the Dharma, otherwise known as Dharma Nusmriti in Sanskrit. What we were doing last week is we concluded last week on mindfulness of the Buddha on Nyen 4. So now we are doing mindfulness of the Dharma, and we are doing this in order to make ourselves happy. in order to generate loving kindness for ourselves. That's the because we are doing loving kindness right now. Okay, and last week, after we had finished mindfulness of the Buddha, we started on mindfulness of the Dharma. And what we did was we talked about how the Dharma is skillfully presented. So there's a phrase. It says the Dharma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. And then the Sutra in the 42 sections use the metaphor of honey. Have you ever put a spoonful of honey in your mouth and you chew? The consistency, the sweetness of honey is the same throughout. So that's the metaphor for the Dharma. It's good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. Okay, Ron's question is not posted to everyone. Okay, let me post Ron's question to everyone. Okay, so everyone can read now in the chat box. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Dharma. Okay, so what you see on the screen are 7 points of the Dharma. Why the Dharma is good to be mindful of. Okay, so number one, which we did last week, is the Dharma is skillfully presented. Number two, number one, the Dharma is skillfully presented. There are so many ways to explain that. What we did last week was only maybe 1 or 2 ways, but there are many ways to explain. But we're not going to go into most of that because towards the end of mindfulness or the Dharma, we'll look at it from the Sutra point of view. Then it'll make more sense. Number two, which we're going to do today, is we are looking at is retribution in the present lifetime. That means if you practice the Dharma, you will actually benefit in your present lifetime. You don't have to wait until your next life. Like how you say, say for example, other religions, you know, they are gods, and then you pray to the god, and you only see the result when you die, because then you get to heaven. You know, in the meantime, you pray for a lot of things, but whether you get them or not, you're not sure. Whether it's if you do, you're not sure if it's attributed to God or not. You know, and people start making claims like, I have a story for you all today. In the story, the person makes a claim, my father has been a very good Brahmin and he has been born in the Brahma heaven. You know, people make claims, but they don't know for sure what's going on. They want to believe, and they hold on very strongly to their belief, but they have no idea. It's all just based on faith in their God, and in what in their own belief. Number three, the Dharma without torment or burning. Then the Dharma is independent of time. Then the Dharma leads to the good place. The Dharma of unhindered penetration and other qualities of the Dharma or the Buddha's Dharma. We may not go through all of them in the coming weeks. We may just touch on it somewhat. Okay, it depends. It depends on what I find out. Okay, so now let's look at retribution in the present lifetime. So the Shastra on the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, the commentary on the great treatise of wisdom, the treatise of great wisdom. Yes, it's a great treatise as well as a great wisdom. So it says the Dharma obtains its retribution in the present existence as it eliminates the various problems of the world caused by desire, as well as the various teachings and arguments caused by wrong views, body. Let me see, I'm reading this wrong. As it eliminates the various problems of the world caused by desire, as well as the various teachings and arguments caused by wrong views, then body and mind find happiness in it. Okay, I think that's a typo. Thus, the Buddha said, observing morality is happiness. Body and mind do not burn. One sleeps well, and on awakening, one is happy. One's fame extends afar. So that's what happens when you understand the Dharma. So, caused by desire, in the second line, desire is one of the 3 poisons, the 3 one of the three poisons that's responsible for all of our sufferings. And what are the three poisons? They're known as greed, anger or hatred or aversion, and ignorance. So these three are known as the three poisons. They are the root of all our afflictions. Ron, do you have a question? I'm asking.
I'm sorry. I already posted it, Usher.
Oh, okay. I'm asking because your mic was unmuted. Okay. Okay, moving on. All right. It says, moreover, in this Dharma of the Buddha, the linking of causes and conditions produces the following fruit. Because of the purity of his morality, the yogin has no regrets. So the word yogin is used here. For us, we'll just use practitioner. All right, that means all of us. His mind being without regrets, he produces the joy inherent in the Dharma. By means of the joy of the Dharma, his body and mind have pleasure and happiness. So what you see is a causational process going on. Okay, causes and conditions. You do one thing, you create the conditions for other things to arise. So in this case, okay, it talks about causes and conditions, and it makes Buddhism very different from religion. Okay, what is religion? Most religions, because I'm not familiar with all religions, but major religions that I know of, there is a powerful being that you pray to, you accept into your life, you pray to for in order for salvation, for the being to save you. So you are at the mercy of this being. But Buddhism is different. Buddhism is about cause and effect. Buddhism is about what you do to create the future that you want, whether you realize it or not. So you do wholesome things, you get wholesome outcomes. So here what they're trying to say is the practitioner has no regrets. Meaning, say if you take someone who doesn't understand cause and effect, so they lead a life which is very unskillful. That means they do things that create opportunities for them, for their minds to be very unsettled. So say you steal things. Okay, when you steal things, you get very suspicious of other people. Even a knock on your door makes you frightened or unable. Your mind is unable to calm down. Or you get involved in a lot of you create a lot of trouble for people, like lawsuits, or you get involved. People sue you because of your unskillful behavior, and as a result of that, your mind is always disturbed all the time. No matter how much you pray, okay, if you lead an unskillful life, but on the other hand, you also pray a lot to whatever God or religion you belong to, no matter how much you pray, your mind is still subject to the stress that you create for yourself. Okay? Your mind is never going to be at peace, no matter if you pray as much as you want. Okay, so that's what makes Buddhism different. So here, the causation is this. You, when it says purity of morality, it means that the life that you lead, the way you treat people, the way you treat yourself, the way you see yourself, for example, with loving kindness or not, the way you treat people with loving kindness or not, whether you follow the 5 precepts. So if you do all those things skillfully, then you have no regrets. If you have no regrets, then the joy arises. And because you have joy that arises from the Dharma, it says here, your body and mind experience pleasure and happiness. In one of the sutras that I shared before, the Buddha says, if you practice well, you don't need to wish for joy. Joy spontaneously arises. It is just a byproduct. It's a given that you will experience joy. So what happens next when your body has pleasure and happiness? With your body having pleasure and happiness, the practitioner can concentrate his mind. Anyone who's tried to meditate will know that if your body is fighting against you and your mind has a lot of things to think about, then you cannot concentrate your mind. Okay. But if you can, if you have, if your body and your mind is full of pleasure and happiness, concentration comes very, very easily. Then when you can concentrate your mind, the practitioner understands in accordance with the truth meaning the way things are. Then when you understand in accordance with the truth, he finds disgust. That means when you see through something, the ability of that thing to control how you feel, meaning the attachment that you have for that thing, wanes, it goes away gradually. Finding disgust. So the word disgust is used here. Usually it is dispassion. Dispassion is a better word, because disgust as a feeling of aversion. Aversion is not good. You don't want aversion. Basically, you just want to not care less. Dispassion. Yeah. So when you are dispassionate about that thing, you become detached from desire for that thing. And then when you get detached from desire, then you obtain the fruit, you obtain deliverance. The retribution or deliverance is called nirvana. So I've shared this before. This formula is in quite a few sutras, like this. You start with precepts or morality or virtue, and then the Buddha explains that everything will just follow one by one. Why? Because you are planting the causes for those conditions to arise. So it's just a simple matter of cause and effect.
Oh, sure.
Yes, Ron.
Can I just throw in a question at this point? It's kind of important.
Yes,
so
please.
If you find disgust in something and you are able to detach from that, is that like a way of like quieting yourself down so that when you actually go and meditate, that stuff that you used to be desire of, it no longer comes and bothers your mind anymore.
Yes, correct.
It's a way of like emptying your mind. I mean, just that is that like a formula? So, when you find disgust in something, whatever it is, gradually, you just get rid of all these things, and one by one, the desire dampens. I mean, it's muted quite a bit, and pretty soon, that's how the mind gets quiet.
Yes, I wouldn't use the word disgust. I would use the word dispassion. That means you no longer have any desire for the thing, and that's a practice. For example, there is a practice for monks. It's not recommended for lay people because their lifestyle is not ready yet. But say for monks or nuns, what we do is we we recollect. We have mindfulness of the body. Okay, so now we are doing mindfulness. We did mindfulness of the Buddha, and then we are doing mindfulness of the Dharma. There's a practice for left-form people called mindfulness of the body. It takes on many forms. One form is where you take the young novices, or not young as in like young of age, but you take a novice monk or someone new in robes. And one of the practices is to observe the human body after death, like in a cemetery or in a hospital, and for them to see the reality of the body. Because when we live in our body, we tend to assume that the body is us, and we try our best to take care of the body. We sometimes go overboard more than what is required. So in that practice, it is done very, very carefully by a skillful teacher, because you don't want aversion or disgust to arise, especially when you see a body through the stages of bloating, changing color, then bloating, and then the smell, and then the worms and all that. You don't want disgust to arise, because disgust is just another emotion. What you want is to be able to see the body for what it is, and then you don't get attached. Okay, so that's one practice. And the moment the teacher sees that the student develops disgust or aversion or revulsion, then the practice stops. Maybe it's not right for that particular person. So it's not the correct practice. So this reminds me of a story. I think it was Ajahn Man or one of Ajahn Man's disciples who was a monk, and he was still very young. Or before he became a monk, he was thinking about whether he should become a monk or whether he should get a wife. Then he sat down and he started thinking. Okay, so this is a more approachable method than, say, the body. Oh, another method of being mindful of the body is you break down the body into its constitution. I can't pronounce that word. Anyway, you break down the body into its parts, like the hair, the nails, the liquids in the body. So what you do is there's a meditational practice that you start to use your imagination, and you group like all the hairs together, all the different parts of the body together, the hard parts, the soft parts, the liquid parts, to break down the body for what it is, to see through the body. And then from there, you develop this passion for the body. Again, that's a practice for monastics. It's not really recommended for lay people. Okay, moving on. So there's this monk. Okay, this monk is thinking of whether he comes to a fork in his life, turn left or turn right. He's not sure. So he sat down, and this is a very renowned teacher in Thai Buddhism. I just don't recall off the top of my mind exactly who this was. It could be Ajahn Man himself. So he sat down. It could be Ajahn Man, Ajahn Chah, or someone along that that seniority. So I started thinking, imagining about having a wife and having a household, and then having children, and then having to work to support the family, and all kinds of problems arise, quarrels and everything. And then he realized that it's just too much trouble. He said, it's just too much trouble getting married, raising a family, and then in the end, he grows old and he has to die. And then without any regrets, okay, he developed the thought of marrying and a family life. He just lost all passion, all desire for that. And he became a monk, and he became a very successful monk. So yes, the part of the practice is to be able to see through on a daily basis, to examine our relationship with things that kind of control our happiness or how we feel, So like loving kindness is a way to generate that self-satisfaction with yourself, to be able to be happy with just yourself from inside, instead of having to rely on other things to define how you feel or who you are, which is what most people do through friendship, through family, through how people think about them, through the belongings that we have, through our careers. Most of us spend our whole lives trying to chase after things or shape things to define who we are, because we derive our sense of self from all these things. And these are the very things that will prevent us that that will hinder our practice. They hold us back. So if we can examine our relationship with all our things, our possessions, our thoughts of ourselves, and say through loving kindness, develop another way of being satisfied and content with ourselves, then it's easier to develop concentration. So that's why loving kindness is very, very important in developing concentration or dhyana. Without loving kindness, basically you cannot. All right. Does that answer your question, Ron? Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe not. Okay. All right. Let's move on. All right. So the Shastra says, as for heretics. Okay. Heretics is a strong word, mainly because of how people use it. But here it means people who do not understand in cause and effect. people who do not understand in the principles of the Dharma. For example, the Noble Eightfold Path. So sometimes the word externalists are used. The word externalists is used because they look outside for a solution to their problems. For example, to God. All right. Whereas Buddhists look internal through chant meditation, that the solution towards suffering is found. So that's why they call externalists. All right. Okay. So as for the heretics, their dharma is void, painful, and without result. Thus, the Arhat Jambuka said the following when he acquired Bodhi. Formerly, I was a heretic for 55 years. I ate only dried cow dung and I slept on thorns. Having endured such cruel tortures, I gained nothing from them. Not like today, when having seen the Buddha and having heard the Dharma, I have left home, and in 3 days, having done what had to be done, I have become Arhat. So there's this very interesting story. Okay, this person's name is Jambuka. And Jambuka previously did not know anything about the Dharma. So his story goes like this. You must be wondering why is he eating cow dung and sleeping on thorns. So a long time ago, during the time of the Buddha Kashyapa, Jambuka was an elder and he was living with a lay devotee, meaning this lay person was supporting his lifestyle. So he was like like an ascetic already, even so many lifetimes ago. So along came another mendicant. I'm not sure whether it was a Buddhist monk or not, but anyway, another mendicant came, and the lay devotee started to was welcome. The lay devotee welcomed this wandering mendicant. So Jambuka, who relies on this lay person for all his food and all that, became jealous. Because he's afraid that he might lose the support of the lay devotee. So it is said that in his jealousy, he insulted the visitor, and he said that he would never accept anything from lay people. He tried to be superior to this visitor. He said he will never accept anything from lay people and would prefer to eat dung, tear out his hair, go naked, and sleep on the ground. So he made that statement. So unfortunately for him, because he planted those thoughts in his mind, he planted those causes. At the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, which is closer to our time, Jambuka, he was born in a very wealthy family. But when he was young, he refused all normal food and ate his own excrement. And when he was grown, he went around naked and slept on the ground. So so you could say he was mentally unstable. Yeah. And this is a result of the thought that he planted in his own mind when he insulted the other ascetic. So his parents had no choice. So what the parents did, the parents gave him away to a group of naked ascetics, since he already was following that kind of lifestyle. So they accepted him. But he was a bit more, ascetic than these naked ascetics, to the extent that when his colleagues, his group went on alms round to get food, he never followed them, but instead he went to the toilets again to eat excrement. To him, that was normal. Okay, it's not like he's forcing himself to eat excrement, but in his mind, that's what he wants. That's what he likes, because that's the thought that he planted in his mind before. But he knew he was doing something not ordinary. Yeah. So whenever someone was walking past, or he was afraid someone would watch him, he would put on a show. He would stand on one foot, because that's what some ascetics do. They stand on one foot. They never put. I think recently there was an article about this person who always stand on one leg. Yeah. In India. So this kind of practices still exist to today. They think that by mortifying the body, by subjecting the body to extreme mortification, that they can find a way out of suffering. So they don't understand cause and effect. So anyway, so he would stand on one foot, put on the show, and open his mouth into the wind to put to. I would imagine that he wants people to think that he sustains only on air. Yeah. So whenever anyone talked to him about food, he would actually say that he only eats wind. Yeah, he refuses all food. But it is said that once a month, he will put a bit of butter on his tongue. And I don't really remember why, but that's what he did. So anyway, he lived for 55 years. Can you imagine 55 years with that kind of lifestyle? And one day the Buddha came to stay in a nearby cave. And at night, Jambuka saw that the four heavenly kings, the four kings, we've covered the the heaven or the four kings. So the four kings of that heaven came to visit the Buddha. And after they came, Lord Chakra and Lord Brahma also came to visit the Buddha. So he was very surprised, and then he went to ask the Buddha what was going on. And then he was even more surprised when he realized that the Buddha was far superior to even Lord Brahma himself. So on the spot, he became a disciple of the Buddha, and just 3 days later, he became an arhat. So his verse, or his verse is all about how he wasted his whole life not knowing the Noble Eightfold Path or the way out of suffering, subjected himself to all kinds of crazy things, and after knowing the Dharma, only after 3 days he became a arhat. Okay, so you might ask yourself, okay, I have a question next. All right. The question is, if the Dharma of the Buddha obtains its fruit in the present lifetime, how is it that among the disciples of the Buddha, some derive nothing from it? So some of you may have been practicing for many, many years. You may have felt that you haven't really benefited from the Dharma. You're not an arhat yet. You're not even a stream enterer, a first stage arhat. So this question is actually from the Shastra, okay, because the Shastra is kind of like people also asking questions. Is very interesting. So the answer is this. The answer says, the practitioner who knows the words of the Buddha and applies them constantly cannot fail to receive his reward. In the same way, the sick person who follows the orders of a good physician and takes all the medicine cannot fail to be cured. On the other hand, if the practitioner does not conform to the Buddha's instructions and does not apply them constantly, his immorality and his distractions will cause him to obtain nothing. But it is false that the Dharma is not good. Okay, so basically, if you think you haven't really benefited, then you only have yourself to blame. So the answer is saying, okay, I just want to take a moment here and talk about Buddhist practices. Okay. Right now, in this present moment, there are a lot of people who define themselves as Buddhists, and they define themselves through the Buddhist practices that they carry out. All right. Sometimes it's helpful to not be too attached. Okay, to take a step back, and then to see during the Buddha's time, to understand during the Buddha's time, if you look at all the sutras the Buddha taught, what did the Buddha say that was actual Buddhist practice? Because if you were to take a proper disciple of the Buddha during the Buddha's time, and then you transport him to our present time, and then you bring him to temples, okay, and you say that, oh, we are Buddhists, that's why we do all this, it would probably be a very strange sight to that person, because say, oh, you say you do all this, therefore you are a Buddhist? Because we have a lot of rituals and ceremonies that were invented after the Buddha's time. And it's not that these rituals and ceremonies are useless, but you have to understand why very wise people, like some of the rituals and ceremonies that we have were invented by patriarchs or put in place by them. You have to understand the intent and purpose. They are meant to effect a transformation in us. So some people think that, oh, I've done a good deed for the year because maybe I joined a particular ceremony like the um, earth, land, water, land, air ceremony, or like the 10,000 Buddha repentance ceremony. And all those are good ceremonies, but it doesn't mean just because you join that that your practice is solid, that you are closer to ending birth and death. Yes, you have planted good seeds, you have planted wholesome seeds that are to do with the Dharma, but if you understand the whole thing about cause and effect, then you can apply yourself skillfully during those ceremonies to lessen anything to do with your greed, your anger, your hatred, and your ignorance. Like concentrating your mind, for example, learning how to concentrate your mind, learning how to see through the relationships that you have with your things so you create more dispassion with things in life, learning more loving kindness so you can treat people better, so you increase your chances of concentration. So if you understand it from that point of view, then the ceremonies will have an efficacious nature on or effect on yourself. But if you just think that only by participating in the ceremonies is a good thing of itself, then that's a wrong view. Buddha actually said that. Okay, Buddha said if you think if you think a ceremony itself has an efficacious nature, that's a wrong view. Okay, all right. So when we look at the Dharma, we also have to understand how we apply ourselves to the Dharma. What is the Dharma trying to do? Okay, moving on. It says, moreover, if those who have not attained Bodhi do not arrive at Nirvana in the present lifetime, in the future lifetime they will, nonetheless, have wealth and happiness, and little by little they will attain Nirvana. Finally, their efforts will not be in vain. Thus the Buddha said, those who have gone forth from home in view of Nirvana will all reach Nirvana, some slowly and other quickly. So basically, everything that you do, if you apply yourself well, if you practice well, okay, if you understand and you reduce your greed, anger, and ignorance slowly, it is bound to pay off. Whether quickly or not depends on the causes and conditions. Okay, for example, let's look at what Shufu has to say. Shufu said in the Lotus Sutra, Shiva's commentary says, don't say living home is easy. You must first plant Bodhi seeds throughout many lives. What is that? You must first plant the causes in many lives for the right conditions to fruit. That's why for some people it is easy or quick. For some people it is hard or slow. Shiva says, don't think that living home is easy to do. So living home here, for our purposes, we can substitute it for, say, come to the monastery, listening to sutra lectures, participating in fahuis, participating in meditation sessions, anything that has to do with practice. So Shufa says, those who leave home must have developed good roots in many lives and have brought forth the Bodhi resolve. One cannot just decide to leave home and do it. If you do not have good roots, you might want to leave home, but obstacles will arise. Most of these obstacles, we tend to think of obstacles as external, like external factors preventing someone. But from my experience, being at CityTB, Berkeley, and here at Tempian, and seeing a lot of people come and go, I would say about 95% of the obstacles actually come from the mind itself, from the habit, from the way a person thinks. That's the true obstacle that prevents them from leaving home. Yeah, it's not so much external factors. And then, but they don't know, these people don't know, they think it's external factors, but it's actually internal. So Shifu says you might leave home for 1 or 2 days, but then you will return to lay life. You might leave home for 1 or 2 years, for 3, 5 or 10 years, but then return to lay life and not leave home again. Such things have happened. So do not think leaving home is easy. When the Arhat saw that he had not planted good roots in the last 80,000 great eons, they said to him, you cannot leave home. You are too old. You cannot cultivate either. It would be best for you to go back to wherever you came from. Do not stay here. This last passage is a bit abrupt because Shufu was referring to a story he told earlier. Okay, let me see what's the time. Okay, so what is this story? This story is about an old man who thought it would be good to become a monk. So he went to where the Buddha was. The Buddha wasn't there. So he told the Buddha's arhats, he said, I want to leave home. So the arhats went into samadhi and examined this person's past lives. And they realized for 80,000 great eons of past lives, this old man had not done any, had not planted skillful causes for him to be successful in leaving home. So from their point of view, he would never succeed in being a monk here. Why? Because there's no goodness in him to develop. There's no good roots at all that they could find. So this made the old man very, very sad. He said, well, I'm old. If I can't be a monk, then I might as well die. So he walked to, I think he was going to jump off into the river, like he was on the bridge. And when he was on the bridge, he saw the Buddha coming towards him. But he didn't recognize the Buddha. He just saw the Buddha as an old monk just walking. And then the Buddha asked him, he said, oh, what are you trying to do? He said, well, I'm going to kill myself. The Buddha said, why? Then he explained everything to the Buddha. And the Buddha said, oh, no, I'm the Buddha. And, I will accept you as a monk. So in the tradition, it says that if the Buddha accepts you as a monk, the Buddha says, I think in the original language, although it's not written down, but the closest we have is Ehi Bhikkhu, means come Bhikkhu. That means the Buddha has accepted you as a monk. And when the Buddha says that to you, your hair immediately falls off. Okay, you don't have to shave your hair. Your hair immediately falls off. The robes immediately appear on your body and your arms bowl. It's like magic. I'm not sure if it's magic, but that's how it is. They say immediately these three things happen. So the Buddha accepted him. And after a while, this old man became a monk. Became an arhat. So the Buddha's other arhats asked the Buddha for clarification because they couldn't understand why the Buddha had accepted him. So the Buddha said that although you all as arhats have the ability to see very far into a person's past lives, but you can only see up to a certain point. So what happened was beyond that point that you all couldn't see, many eons ago, this man was chased by a tiger, and he climbed up a tree, and in his fear he shouted the Buddha's name. And because of that, I have accepted him to be a monk, and that is why he's successful in becoming an arhat. So how it works is this: when you meet a Buddha, okay, which is why a lot of people want to be born during the Buddha's time, you have planted many good causes before. Okay, the Buddha is able to see the good causes that you have planted, and the Buddha is able to create the conditions for to exploit those good causes for them to arise. And because the Buddha is able to do that, then the Buddha is able to teach you to give you a teaching for you to concentrate your mind. I hope I've explained that properly. So a lot of people like to be born during the Buddha's time, and that's why many people during the Buddha's time attain the various stages of arhatship, because the Buddha is able to create the conditions for their past seeds to arise, for their goodness to arise. Whereas for us now, if we don't have a good teacher, those conditions are very hard to come about. So what is like to, for example, like this accumulation of good roots, so that one day we can be very quick or very easy in our ending of birth and death, or becoming a bodhisattva. Think of it this way. Think of it as inheriting a garden. What is the garden? The garden is full of all the causes that we have planted before. So all of you right now listening in is because in the past you have planted the habits that are needed for you to now think that it is a good idea to spend this time listening to a sutra lecture. Why? Because you want to benefit yourself. If you haven't planted those good habits before, then you look at majority of people in this world, they have no time for a sutra lecture at all. They might find it, most of them find it a waste of time. Yeah. So these are good roots that you want to plant. Where do these good roots come from? In the garden that you have inherited, meaning your karmic habits that you have inherited from your past lives. So because you have certain goodness, certain virtue in you, you also want to feel gratitude for all the past versions of you. Okay, all the good things that the past yous have done, although you don't remember, but you can see the results of those good roots. Why? Because you are listening to a lecture on the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, which is very, very rare. All right. You're learning how to develop loving kindness for yourself, which is very, very important and also very, very rare. All right. And so you see yourself as the custodian of this garden. Okay, you have the good fortune to inherit this garden, which has a lot of things that are good for you. It may not be exactly what you want, but it has a lot of good things that's good for your health. If you think that you want certain plants or certain fruits, then it is your job now, provided those are skillful plants and fruits, to plant those right now. Because then in your future life, the next person that comes along will be able to reap the benefits. And then that person, hopefully, because you have planted the proper causes, will also see themselves as custodians of the garden. And they will improve the garden. And then the garden gets improved and improved and improved until one day that person gains enlightenment and remembers all his or her past lives, and you are one of them. You say, oh, I remember. Yeah, at that time I did this, I did that. And as a result of those things that I did, now I'm here. That's how it works. Okay, so everything is cause and effect. All right. Okay, so I know last week there were some questions that I didn't answer. Does anyone who were asking the questions? Okay, let me see. I know Sui Ling asked a question about Pure Land. All right, the question was about Pure Land. Is visualization of the Buddha, is it considered Nyan for? Yes. There are actually three, they're considered the three Pure Land Sutras. Okay, so we have the short sutra, which we recite at the temple every day. You come to the temple, chances are you recite the short Amitabha Sutra. That takes maybe 10 minutes or less. Yeah, about 7 to 10 minutes, depending on how fast you recite. And then you have the larger sutra on Amitabha Buddha, and that has his 48 vows. And then you have the middle length sutra. And the middle length sutra is about the visualization of the Pure Land. The sutra came about because there is this person, a queen called Vaidurya, who, let me see, he's the king. I think the king's is Bambisara. Yeah, I think the king's name was Bambisara. So I don't have the full details, but what happened was they have a child called Ajasaru, and he was the one who imprisoned his father. He wanted to kill his parents, his father and mother, and he ended up imprisoning the father and starving him to death. And the queen had to resort to hiding grape juice in her jewelry and rubbing flour on her body so that she could feed to smuggle in food to feed the king. So she went to the Buddha, and amidst all this, and she said, "Oh, life is so full of suffering." And she asked the Buddha to teach her a way to get out of all this suffering in the Saha world. So the middle sutra on of the Three Pure Lands Sutra is all about the Buddha teaching her how to visualize the Pure Land, from the ground to the trees of the Pure Land, to the ponds of the Pure Land, to the different fruits and leaves and all the different colors and precious materials of the Pure Land that you get a sense of in the short Amitabha Sutra. Yeah. So I guess when we begin our, I want to do a class on the Pure Land, you know, so people can understand what proper Pure Land practice as described in the sutras are. We can go through this sutra then. Yeah, so there are three Pure Land sutras, and visualization of the Pure Land and of the Buddha is part of the Nyanfor practice. Okay. And Saha's question was, is Saha with us today? No, not today. Her question was chanting Amitabha's name and vow to be born in his land. That is also part of the Nyanfor, or mindfulness of the Buddha practice. Okay, so Ron's question is, he receives in the mail notepads and return address stickers from charities who are soliciting donation. If I use their notepads and stickers without donating, is that like stealing? Okay, let me ask Ron a question. Ron, the return address stickers, in to the best of your knowledge, they are provided so that you can post your donation back to them, right?
Yes, they always have like a remittance form.
Okay, and if I understand correctly, the way it works is that if someone uses their return address sticker, then they are charged for it. If no one uses it, then they don't incur a cost.
No,
right?
No. It's the return address is like your own return address. That's what I mean. It's like when you make when you're ready to send a piece of mail, you put your return address on the left hand corner, the upper left hand corner, and so that if the mail cannot be delivered, they send it back to you at that address.
Oh, okay. So if you use the sticker, the return address sticker, then your mail goes back to you.
Yes, I mean,
okay.
They do this like for us as a service. They print like maybe a dozen or 2 dozen return addresses for you so that you can put it on your mail.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what do people think? Ron says if he does not give a donation, but he uses the things that they give to him, is that considered stealing? Anyone?
I can speak to that, Dharma Master.
Yes,
if he's given by other people, I just joined the class right now, but from what I know, if he's given gifts by other people, if it's willingly, I think it's okay. But It depends on the circumstances as well. I think it depends on each situation, each circumstance.
Okay. Anyone else?
Master, I would like to try.
Yes, Melinda. After you, then will be Isabella. Okay. Right, Melinda.
My answer is yes, consider stealing. Because one of the criteria consider as stealing is intention. It's already given there is a return address. So did not return, but instead you use the notepad. I think the intention is there, but whether this the value of the notepad, how much I do not know. If it is less than certain amount, then you won't consider as stealing. This is what I want to share. Thank you.
Okay. So let me just give sorry for interrupting, Isabella. I just wanted to clarify with Ron and for everyone. Ron, the return address sticker is your address, right? They print, they take your address, they print it on a sticker, on 20 stickers, and then they just give it to you, right?
Right, and they give you a notepad too, so you can write notes. It's
Okay.
kind of like it's kind of pleasant thing, I mean, you
Okay.
always have paper to write something,
Okay. All right. Yes, Isabella.
I used to live in the US myself, Ron, so I know I'm familiar with all of these gifts that come through. Kind of like a pressure point, right? It's like a pressure marketing. Sometimes they even give you a whole stack of Christmas cards that they're expecting you to use it. At the same time, you're supposed to have this guilt trip of donating back the money. So I think it runs both ways. I don't think this is stealing, but rather I would say that they already costed in the fact that they're not going to receive back a donation by 50% or maybe less. I've seen this before on their side of their accounting, how they solicit for donations, if that's what you want to feel better about. Okay, but if it makes you feel good about giving donation, then by all means give the donation. Of course, the whole idea of getting donation from you is actually to collect your information that you are a potential donor. So there lies the conundrum, whether to give or not to give. Yeah, there's no such thing as anonymous donation after you donate and then you provide your details. Yeah. So I don't have a real good answer for you, but feel your consciousness, whether it's the right thing to do. But let me tell you that they are not expecting any returns usually.
Anyone else?
I can also comment, Dharma Master.
Yes.
I think it all depends on the intention, and it all depends on the intention. That's what I think it is.
Okay. All right. So well, if anyone else has anything to say, just unmute your microphone. So Saha, I had a quick answer to your question from last week. You asked about chanting Amitabha's name and vow to be born in his land. Is that part of Nien 4 or mindfulness of the Buddha practice? Yes, it is. Okay, so Ron, in this case, like how Isabella said, they are being nice to you in the hopes that you will donate. Okay, they are not charging you for using those things. It is kind of like a guilt trip. They want to make you feel guilty that they have gone to the trouble of being so nice to provide you with a notepad and with return address stickers that you otherwise would not have, in the hope that you will appreciate their gesture and that you will donate to a good cause. Maybe because someone has donated these items on their behalf, someone has already paid for these items. I'm not sure how they do the accounting, but anyway, that's the whole point. Okay, they want donations and they want to get your attention and make you feel bad that they are being nice to you. Okay. So what Isabella said also made a lot of sense. As in, if you are using their things and it makes you uncomfortable, you try to recite the Buddha's name, or you try to meditate, or just in your daily life, you have that nagging, that voice like, is that stealing? I'm not sure, then it becomes unskillful. That means your actions of putting aside the precepts and intentions and all that, okay? Putting aside all those things. We're talking about what's skillful for you. So you realize that when you use something and you put yourself in that position where the results become unskillful, you start to second guess your actions. Maybe it's not regret or anything, but there's second guessing, and there's something there that prevents full 100% peace of mind. Then you need to do what's right. For other people, they may not, they say, I had no intention of stealing. They fully understand the circumstances of what's going on, and they just use the notepad and use the stickers without a further thought. Then that's totally fine for them. But in your case, if there's a shadow that follows you after your initial action that causes more thoughts that are totally unnecessary, then either you stop or you just write them a donation. Yeah. And since we are already past time, okay, I will just leave, let me see, slide. Okay. Part of the slides for today, which we never get to, is this. The Buddha talks about giving. Okay, so you look at your screen. This is about food, but it's giving in general. Okay. So Buddha says, having given much food as offerings to those most worthy of offerings, the donors go to heaven on departing the human state. Having gone to heaven, they rejoice and enjoying pleasures there. The unselfish experience the result of generously sharing with others. So look at the last two lines. The unselfish experience the result of generously sharing with others. So if you, I think that's a much better feeling than feeling otherwise, like, have you stole or even have a slight doubt. I don't think any money is worth having doubt. And I should have shared the slide before. The slide before is this, the Buddha saying, bhikshus, if beings knew as I know the result of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would they allow the stain of meanness to obsess them and take root in their minds. Even if it were their last morsel, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared it if there was someone to share it with. But bhikkhus, as beings, do not know as I know the result of giving and sharing. They eat without having given, and the stain of meanness obsesses them and takes root in their minds. So ultimately, Ron, I wouldn't obsess over it because they have gifted those things to you already. Otherwise it will go to waste because no one else can use the address stickers because no one shares your address. Notepad, yeah, you don't use the notepad, it also goes to waste. So it's nice that you are not wasting resources. But if it makes you feel slightly guilty, then you can, instead of just letting it dwell, you can give a small donation and try to do something about it as well. So it's up to you, but it's no big deal. Okay, you're not stealing. All right. So if you can, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it because you've done nothing wrong. It's not stealing. But if it dwells in your mind and you want to do something about it, then you have a choice as well. Okay. All right. Just do what's skillful for yourself. All right. Anyone else? No? What about the questions that were unanswered last week? Weren't there a question that went unanswered? I remember I wrote it down, but I can't find it. No? Okay, if not, then we will end this and let's share, dedicate, merit. Okay. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, everyone, we'll see you next week. Amitabha.
Thank you, Dharma Master.